Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddard. Very excited today to have with me two very close friends, guys that I look to as mentors, leaders, and bosses. these guys are fantastic.
I like that you laugh when you say that. That's good.
They are the leaders of Old Republic Title here in Oregon, and they have built an amazing company culture. And if you're a real estate agent and desire to scale your business, at some point you're going to add somebody, and you're going to add somebody else, and potentially add somebody else. And it's going to be requisite for you if you want to keep good talent and attract good talent, then you're going to need to build the company culture, a place where people want to work, a place where people don't just get everything they want, but they get what they need. So we just had a great branch meeting, and I thought it would be appropriate to have a lively conversation with two guys that make me laugh and inspire me about how to have a great company culture. So Ryan, you mentioned something in the meeting that gives people perspective, that it's not that their perspective isn't always right. Would you share what that is?
Well, it's actually a line that Steve used, so we'll steal it from him. But basically, it's when you're, and I can say this because I step up on my soapbox a lot. I get passionate about things, and I start, putting my point of view out there and telling everybody, what I feel is right. And, Steve made a really great point in the meeting, basically talking about the fact that all of us need to, when we're in that position, also sit there and say, according to me. So basically do a little bit of self-reflection, which can go a long ways, and say, okay, am I right or am I doing the right thing? It's not all just about making you right. It's about making sure you're doing the right thing.
Great stuff. Steve, any thoughts add to that?
Ryan and I have teased quite a bit. We have a mission statement on the wall, but taking the mission statement down and just putting the word communication. It seems like in anything in life, whether we're going out, we're meeting with clients, we're handling internal issues, when you're trying to grow anything, communication is the deal, right? People want to have transparency, and they want to have people that there's a level of respect that goes along with communicating with people. But I think it's, you take that a step further, and it really is, I might have this really strong opinion on something, but it's according to me. It's according to, what my background is, what my thoughts are, what my reality is, what my perception is. It doesn't necessarily mean the people I'm talking with disagree with what I'm saying, but they've had an entire life where they have been trained to think a different way. Doesn't mean the wrong way, just a different way. And being able to step back and actually think about that when you're having a conversation with someone, it goes a long way with respecting them. And it goes back to another thing we were talking about today with ego, right? I think, sometimes as guys, we struggle a little bit because we like to lead with ego, the puffed out chest. And I think it's super important, when we're having those conversations, when we are trying to either coach, train, teach, or just have a conversation with somebody, that we are really listening and we're really hearing it from their point of view.
Great stuff. Scoot up a little bit, guys. I'm concerned maybe the audio won't be as good.
I'm a little concerned that I'm not standing on books next to Ryan is what I'm concerned about.
One thing that I actually had a thought this morning, that oftentimes building great company culture isn't always about just encouraging people. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's about telling them, hey, I believe in you. You can do more. You've got untapped potential. You're amazing. I support you. Sometimes it's having a fierce conversation with people, right? Sometimes it's telling them like, hey, what you did there was not the right thing to do for the group, for the company, for the whole. How have you guys come, because you get to have both conversations, right? You get to say, I believe in you. You're amazing. You're doing a great job. And other times it's like, hey, don't do that again. Yeah. How have you kind of come to grips with being able to have those fierce conversations without people taking it personally or without it being super heavy on you?
It's not easy. There's no easy way about it. You're dealing with people. You're not interested in smashing people's opinions or making them feel bad about themselves. At the same time, you do have to think of the whole, and you have to think of, and the whole doesn't just include yourself. It includes everybody else that's in that environment. And oftentimes we'll think of ego as everybody goes overboard. So you put
everybody goes overboard.
There.
I love that.
You sit there and go, oh well, everything about me is really what matters. And I think that it's hard not to. I think there's a certain part of it that's human nature, but I think that on the flip side of that, it's really important to, again, do what's right, not necessarily be right. And so it's having that conversation to say, this isn't about what you think of me or what I think of you. This isn't about, what, someone else might be involved with you, but it's more about what you're doing. Is it right or is it wrong? And making that choice.
I love it.
Always on the right side.
Steve, any additional thoughts on that of how you have those tough conversations when they're not always fun, right?
Yeah, I think as a leader, a lot of times we ask questions that we already know the answer to, or we think we know the answer to. We're looking to see how somebody responds. And I think it's going into each one of those conversations, where it's a good conversation, a bad conversation. I mean, it can be the good side to, hey, I'm offering you a promotion and here's, your new salary, to, hey, if we can't, fix what's going on here, we might have to say goodbye to each other. You need to go in there with an outcome in mind or a goal in mind for the conversation. A leader has thought more about it. Leaders aren't reactive, right? Yeah. Leaders are proactive, and leaders are have already thought, hey, if I have this conversation and it goes this direction, this may happen. If I have this conversation and it goes this direction, this may happen before. And it helps you guide, because you really are trying to help shape an outcome, whether it's a fierce conversation or not.
You obviously led real estate offices for the better part of 10 years, Steve. Yeah. So you saw real estate agents hire people, right? And they probably at times struggled because they weren't willing to communicate well with somebody. They just said, hey, I'm going to hire you. Your job is to be my assistant. Yeah. Follow me around and pick up the details, fix me, right? Yeah. What advice would you give to a real estate agent that's hiring somebody when it comes to communicating? I mean, a lot of the principles you've already talked about, but is there something else that you saw work really well with people that hired and kept and retained great talent, to those that maybe continued to kind of lose people?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think one, it goes back to what's the end goal? Leaders or real estate agents, the teams, people that have a very clear idea of the path where they're trying to go, it's a lot easier to pick up the people along the way to help you get there, right? But I think more than anything else, it is just natural for us to want to surround ourselves with people that are exactly like us. And we know there only really needs to be one of us. We need people to complement, and we need people that do things that we don't know how to do or don't do well. And I think that the leaders that were able to kind of take ego out of it, right? Be a little bit humble and say, I don't know what I don't know, and able to surround themselves with people that might be experts more in something that I'm not very good at or they're not very good at, have the best chance of success. But you see people fail forward all the time, right? It's a super common thing. You see some of the best real estate agents you've had here in town, and you sat down with them, you could probably have a conversation all day long with people that have been on their teams, that are no longer on their teams, but they learned something along the way and didn't have to make that mistake twice.
Ego is the enemy. I haven't read the book, but I've heard great things about it. Yeah. And I think kind of what I'm hearing you say is that oftentimes gets in the way, right? People's inability to communicate, or like you were saying earlier, Ryan, like that I've got to be right. This has got to be about me. Yeah. Ryan, you have to, being in the escrow world, right, where it's always urgent, right? We have very short timelines. Things are changing very quickly. And sometimes you have to step in and make something right. Like let's say, something doesn't happen exactly how the client had expected. What advice would you give to a real estate agent who, when a transaction doesn't go perfect, right? Because 99% of the time, things go awesome. Right. But occasionally there's that one where it doesn't. I've seen you, I've got kind of my perspective on what you do in those situations, but I'd love to hear you say when something doesn't go right, what's the opportunity and what should a real estate agent do in those situations?
Well, I'll paraphrase. There's a T.S. Eliot quote, basically that you can't go back to the beginning and change what happened, but you can start from where you're at and change the ending. And so I think that's probably the biggest step that anybody can take, whether it's on the escrow desk, whether it's the real estate agent, whether it's the consumer that's in the transaction. The problem is that in most cases, the consumer is going to have too much emotion in it. And we're all human, and escrow officers are naturally reactionary. So I think, because we're constantly reacting to everything. And the first person to kind of step in, and what I always try to tell all of our staff, is that you're the one to come in and calm it down. You're the one to come in and bring some level of sanity to it. So come in, take a deep breath, be the solution. Don't just be the one who's, adding to the frustration and the anger and the emotions that are involved in it. And I think, coming from an escrow officer's perspective, anytime the real estate agent stepping in that, it's all the more helpful because it also calms the client down. We don't have as much contact with the client as the real estate agent does. And I get it. I mean, these are important things. These are the biggest transactions someone's going to do in their life. This is their home. This is a very important thing. It's not trying to be dismissive of what the issue might be. Yeah. It's just that nothing's going to get accomplished, or at least nothing's going to get accomplished well, if the emotions are allowed to just kind of keep climbing up over everybody's head. So it is just trying to bring it down a little bit.
Steve, you've found to be very proficient at attracting great talent. You look at like the escrow officer team that we have, I put them up against anybody. If you're a real estate agent and you, again, part of having a great company culture is attracting people who are a good fit, right? Yeah. is there advice you'd give to a real estate agent on what that looks like to attract good talent, to kind of be a recruiter of people who will help build a culture?
Having someone like Ryan, that helps a lot. I think it's nice of you to say that about me. I think a lot of the reasons we have attracted great talent on the escrow side, especially, is because of Ryan. Mm-hmm. Ryan is I wouldn't say player coach is not the right word, but man, even at a former company we worked at, I know, sorry, Ryan doesn't like compliments either, but Ryan would step in and sit on a desk as an assistant, a second or third assistant, if needed. He gets his hands dirty, rolled up his sleeves. He is the man of the people, is what we call him around here. And that helps a lot. And I think as you're going out there and you're trying to attract talent in any business, people want to see that they want to work for someone that would go to bat for them. They want to work with somebody that can understand what they're going through and what they're seeing. And you talk about those tough conversations. That's secondary. The first part is, hey, do you have my back? And I think leaders that are able to show that from the very beginning is working with me, being on our team, not my team, not a lot of me and I, a lot of ours, right? And I've got your back. And I think that's key.
I think you guys have both learned from someone who we all admire, Bill Thomas, who was the former leader of Old Republic title here. And I remember he would correct me when I was introducing Bill to somebody. I'd say, I work for Bill. And Bill would say, no. We both work for Old Republic. Justin and I work together. And these two guys really personify that. And I think when you're the leader of an organization, people have to feel like they matter, that you're just not a pawn in their game, but that but their game matters, right? And kind of where they're headed, you're going to help them get there faster than anywhere else. So I've learned that firsthand from these guys, and I really appreciate their leadership. They're some of the best in the business, some of the best in any industry at being great leaders. So any final words, guys? Does that kind of sum it up?
Speaking about Bill, and I love saying that, one of the things that I learned from Bill that I thought was just awesome, and I know we've talked about it quite a bit, was Bill says a definition of a leader is somebody that can remove obstacles for their people that they serve, right? Mm-hmm. Turn that hierarchy upside down. At the top, they serve everybody. Yeah. Remove obstacles for everybody else so they can do their job the best way possible.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, servant leadership has actually become much more of a thing you hear now. I mean, I see it all the time. People talk about it all the time. I mean, I think it's absolutely important. But for as long as I worked with Bill, that was his mantra. For the 11 or 12 years that I worked with him, that was always what he said. So I guess before it was en vogue, he was there. Mm-hmm. So
he was living it. Very good. Great stuff, guys. I really appreciate you being on this episode of the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Let me ask just one more kind of question in closing to each of you. Kind of the signature question of the show, which is, what do you do to intentionally think bigger? Like, what's a practice or an activity or something that you do to where your possibilities are regularly expanded and you don't get stuck inside this little box, this little paradigm? Any thoughts?
Wow. Something that is kind of natural to me. I question myself every damn day, every single day. I'm always saying, again, is this right? Or am I just trying to be right? Try to look at as many options as I can, recognizing that I don't have all the answers, and that, trying to, one, incorporate as many other ideas as I can from other people, but also have their input on it. That's a fine line. It's tough because on one hand, you don't want anyone to feel like they give their 2 cents and then you've dismissed it because you've gone another direction or you've gone something. So you have to find a way to thank them. I mean, be grateful. And then at the same time, just keep questioning where your perspective's coming from, and then all the other perspectives around it. So,
Great stuff. Love that.
Yeah, I think it's taking a step back and looking at all the different people that you associate with and realize that you can learn something from everybody. It doesn't mean, even if they're not involved in something that's very, specific to what you do every day, there's something that has made them special, some unique gift that's been given to them that they have grown, that is something that you can learn from them. I was listening to a podcast one day, and I think it was Lance Armstrong's podcast, and he said the best part about being Lance Armstrong is that he can invite 10 or 11 different people over to break bread and drink wine that are experts in whatever they do. It could be art, could be an athlete, could be someone on Wall Street, and they sit there and they all get better because they're telling each other stories and talking about what they do. And I think that's how you get bigger. Make sure that you are very open to the conversations that are around you, like really open, really listening to them. And you don't have to call the person a mentor to learn something from them.
Great. Great stuff. I get the good fortune of being led by some giants, and I'm grateful for that.
One of us is more giant than the other.
So anyway, I want to thank you again for tuning into this episode of the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. If this has been valuable, I would encourage you to go share it with a friend, and give us a review. It would mean the world to me. So thanks, everybody. Go build